In order to decide whether we should use an RDBMS or a NoSQL database is what is the sort of requirement that the system has. Hi, welcome to Design Strong. So today we'll discuss about one more important topic towards designing large-scale systems, and that is choosing the right database. Choosing the right database is an important aspect when we consider designing a large-scale system. Why? Because not all the requirements can be fulfilled through a specific sort of database, and we need to understand the kind of requirement that our system requires. So in case if you are looking to understand how does designing of a large scale system works, it's important that you understand the sort of databases which are there and sort of things which are to be kept in mind while understanding or while deciding on what database to choose. So let's get started. In case if you're new to the channel, do not forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can get updated towards the next upcoming video. So guys, I strongly recommend that you do not watch this video without a headphone, because I want you to understand this completely, and do not miss out on any part of this video because each and every second of this video is going to be very important. So first, in order to understand what database to choose, we need to understand what sort of requirements are there in the system. So first, we will see in-memory databases that are there. What database needs to be chosen strongly depends on whether your system is going to be read heavy or whether your system is going to be write heavy. Let's say if you're designing a system like Dropbox, you can consider that there will be a lot of write operations which will happen, because that is how the system is ought to be designed. Whereas in case if you are designing something like a URL shortener, which we did earlier, you understand that this is going to be a read heavy system, because once a URL is shortened, there will be multiple fetches for the same URL. So consider an example of what to choose for an in-memory database. So in-memory database in another form is the name for caches that we use in our system. So primarily one needs to consider a requirement wherein we need to serve a data which is pre-calculated. In such cases, we can look towards in-memory databases. A good example of in-memory databases is, let's say, Redis, Memcache, and there are several other open source in-memory databases which are available. But when we look forward to design a system which is scalable and which has been tested for such a scale, I think the best thing to use for a cache is Redis. Why? Because one, Redis is running on single thread. What does that mean is you can use it for acquiring and locking objects as well in case of a multi-threaded environment or an environment where services are running on cluster and have multiple pods. Two, the request and response time of Redis is very fast and has been proven for providing data in order of GBs as well. So that is the reason. Plus, a lot of multinational companies are utilizing Redis for in-memory database. It is fairly simple to install Redis and start utilizing it. So this is about in-memory database. In case if you have a requirement for an in-memory database for your system design interview, I would recommend that one should choose Redis. One more thing to keep in mind while using Redis for in-memory databases, generally we use it in the form of a key value storage, because we provide the key to fetch a value and then we get the response from the Redis, and Redis is pretty fast. Next is while storing media objects or files. In tech term, we call it BLOB, blob, binary large object. So in this case, we do not have a requirement of generally doing a where sort of query, like search for all students where name starts with A. Such requirements will not be there, and these sort of media storage is required for storing files such as images, GIFs and videos, and any sort of document upload which can be required by user in future. So for this, the best storage is Amazon S3. So S3 is nothing but a bucket based solution which works like a file directory, and where you can have an actual path. You can also have access protection, like who can see the file, who cannot, on the basis of buckets and individual files as well. And the response time and storage time is very good, and the cost of storage is pretty efficient. So one can always use Amazon S3 in their system design interview in case they want to store, let's say, an image a video or documents. One more thing that we should consider here is use of a CDN. So CDN is nothing but content delivery network. Whenever we are using sources like Amazon S3 and our requirement is that these files will be required in near future from different geographies, we create copies of the same file in different locations of geography so that these can be provided to user in less time. For instance, Netflix as a system uses CDN a lot. So that means a video which is being released in India can be served from a content delivery network location which is nearest. And let's say if there is a similar video in US that needs to be published, they can do it from the node of the CDN or the content delivery network in the US itself. So for using media type storage, one should use Amazon S3 plus CDN as their approach for system design. Next in the database to choose is text search capability. Text search capability is like you might have seen that how does a search box works in, let's say, YouTube or any other large scale systems. So search capabilities are generally based on time series databases. Time series databases is nothing but databases which works on the basis of timestamps, wherein the operations happens in append only mode. So these databases are not good for asset properties, but these databases in general are good for designing systems such as metric calculation. So in case if you are aware of large scale designing, you might have seen systems like Grafana working. So they work on time series databases. Good example of time series databases can be Prometheus, InfluxDB and OpenTSDB. So OpenTSDB is nothing but open time series database, and this is being frequently used. One more thing to consider while using time series databases is that reads are generally in bulk. So they're not specific reads with a very specific timestamp. There will be reads such as for a time duration, let's say what are the metrics for last 15 minutes, last 30 minutes, etc. So this sort of requirements is fully fulfilled using time series databases. Plus there is a concept of edit distance as well, which is nothing but a fuzzy logic. So in case if you're searching for, let's say, design strong and you did a spelling mistake, you did DSEIGN instead of a DESIGN. So you see ES has been replaced. So the edit distance for this is 2. So there are so many algorithms which are available to resolve this problem, but if you're using a time series database, it is automatically resolved because they understand what is the data that user is looking for. Next requirement for choosing a database is for generally doing offline operations or large scale reporting. So for example, if you have a large scale system such as Amazon or maybe Flipkart, then there will be a lot of microservices will be running. All of these will be storing their backend database and dumping it into one store, and then this as a whole can be used for creating multiple analytics queries. One thing to keep in mind for these systems are they're not real-time systems, so some sort of delays for creating those reports or generating those reports is fine. In such cases, Hadoop works very well. So Hadoop can be deployed on solutions like Apache Hive based solutions, and there are Hive based solutions available in Amazon AWS as well. So now next we will cover the very important topic, which is SQL versus NoSQL database. So first of all, in order to decide whether we should use an RDBMS or a NoSQL database is what is the sort of requirement that the system has. So for example, if the system requires structured data or some data which can be divided in the form of rows and columns, and these columns at least are not going to change, or let's say if you want to utilize some sort of asset properties like atomicity, consistency, etc., in such cases we should use RDBMS. So for instance, in case if you're designing a payment solution for any sort of large scale system, then one should use RDBMS. Good examples of RDBMS can be MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, MS SQL Server as well. And in case if your system is read heavy or write heavy and would require unlimited sort of read IOPS or write IOPS, and if you are using a solution like AWS, one can also look at a database technology which is designed on existing databases such as Amazon Aurora as well. Amazon Aurora, I know, has been utilized by several startups and is doing well on large scales. Now next, in case if your data is not in tabular format or cannot be divided in, let's say, rows and columns, in that case you can use NoSQL sort of database. So NoSQL sort of database can be used based on the query pattern. So let's say if your query pattern is like let's say you have a key and a value which can change like JSON. In that case, document DB is the choice that one should do for creating a NoSQL based databases. And when we come to document DBs, following are the examples: MongoDB and Couchbase. And in case if you have a data which is increasing more than linear, let's say exponential sort of data, for example, let's say if the sales data of Amazon is there, then one can expect that this is ever increasing data and the sort of queries are going to be finite. In such cases, one can use column DB. So column DB is nothing but one sort of NoSQL database which is column prominent, and this is where Cassandra can be a very good choice. HBase and Cassandra both can be used, but I generally prefer Cassandra because Cassandra is preferable, because in case if you are looking at infra, HBase is a bit difficult to manage and to maintain, whereas Cassandra can be set up easily and can also be managed easily. So if you have these choices in mind, you can easily decide whether we should choose a NoSQL database or an RDBMS in an interview. So quickly revising on what we have learned in this video. 1, we have seen first in-memory databases such as Redis. Then we have seen media type storage in terms of Amazon S3 and CDN. Next, we have seen time series database for designing systems like metric calculation. Then we have seen when to use SQL or NoSQL based on the sort of requirements we have. I hope it is helpful to design and decide what database to use in your next system design interview. Hope you like it. In case if you found it helpful, do not forget to share it amongst your circles, because I know there are a lot of people who are not aware about this resource, but it can be really helpful for each and every one of them. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button and say design strong.